Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Ganganasadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami.
Dear Seeker of Truth, welcome. This work that we are going to talk about is one of the most sacred dialogues because it happens between two enlightened beings. One is Ashtavakra, the other is King Janaka, which was Ashtavakra's disciple. So in it you will have a glimpse of the instruction of an enlightened being so that you can achieve liberation, and also the vision of how a liberated being stands, acts, what is his experience. So pay attention to these teachings, fill your heart with surrender, devotion, sacredness, because that is the way to enjoy it the most. May it blossom in your heart. May you also find liberation. Moving on, chapter 12, Abiding in the Self. So Janaka says, I became intolerant first of physical action, then of extensive speech, and then of thought. Thus, therefore, do I firmly abide. So I became intolerant. This is a very interesting word. This talks about the path to stillness and to realization. So this becoming intolerant means that as you reach certain levels of vibration, those vibrations that are lower, you become intolerant to that. That which disturbs this vibration, this more firm, more still vibration that you're getting at, whatever is more rajasic in nature disturbs this. And then what disturbs this stillness? It's like there's a intolerance towards that. So he says that first he became intolerant to physical action. It's not a matter of decision. It is going through the levels of vibration. And as your spiritual practice grows, as you move into higher vibrations, those rajasic vibrations, those lower vibrations, they disturb. You feel like intolerant to that. So these are stages. It also speaks about the levels of stillness. So first, even in meditation, it is the same principle. First is the physical stillness. You cannot achieve mental stillness if you don't have any physical stillness. And by physical stillness is not in your favorite posture, it is in the posture of meditation. Straight, firm posture. And it is in this place that quietude, stillness has to be achieved. Only when this is possible, you move on to the more subtler levels until you reach thought. But you cannot reach mental stillness without the physical stillness, without the emotional stillness. So this comes step by step. And then, of course, that is the practice. Then comes the natural states, which I was talking about previously. And the natural states are according with the practice. As you disengage more and more from these rajasic vibrations, and you get established. First with effort, then it becomes natural, effortless in these higher vibrations. Those lower vibrations, you become intolerant. It's like there's something there that doesn't allow that anymore. Until you establish yourself in the self. So King Janaka is speaking here about the progression from the grosser aspects to the more subtle aspects. And the roots of all are in the mind. And as you control these two aspects of depleting energy, of directing energy, which is physical action and speech, when you control that, then you can access these mental roots of all. As it is all in place, there's too much food for these mental tendencies, and it's impossible to purify the mind. So you can watch this from different angles. Either the control of speech and physical action, but let's keep in mind that this physical action, so becoming intolerant to physical action, is about vibration or guidance. Because a tamasic person is intolerant to physical action, but not because it's in a sattvic state. It has transcended the body, has achieved bodily stillness. It's nothing to do. It's actually the opposite. And it's very easy to mistake one with the other. Very easy. And I see this a lot. Thus, therefore, do I firmly abide, firmly, unshakenly. So, in this verse, he speaks about his progression in his quest for liberation, and then establishing himself in liberation, in truth. According, the name of the chapter is Abiding in the Self. So it came from a progression, from intolerance to physical action, then extensive speech, then of thought. Therefore do I firmly abide. And if you can remember, in the previous verses, there was nothing to accept, nor reject, nor destroy. But here it says, I became intolerant. So all these speeches, they convey ideas. And it's important to have the full scope of it instead of just grabbing to one verse to justify a needed reality. Having no attachment for sound and other sense objects, and the self not being an object of perception, my mind is free from distractions and one-pointed. Thus, therefore, do I firmly abide. So, having no attachment to sound and other sense objects, this means he already gone through detachment, contention of the sense organs, detachment from sense objects, and then the cultivation of non-attachment, firm non-attachment. So having no attachment for sound or other sense objects, fully detached from that. And the self not being an object of perception, my mind is free from distraction. Distractions were the sense objects. And is one-pointed in the self, which is not an object of perception. Therefore do I firmly abide. So we can see this both ways. We can see this in the path of rising towards the self, towards oneness, or we can see it in the sense of being established in oneness. Both are true, and we can give both meanings and take the best out of them. So the one who is climbing the ladder of consciousness, whatever that means. So having no attachment to sense pleasures. So first there was compulsion towards sense pleasures. So this had to be contained. Then there was by the containment, desires start to fade. Your investment towards those sense objects stops. Then you work on the detachments, on what you're attached already. You're not forming any new attachment, just dealing with these attachments that were there. Then you practice complete non-attachment by keeping yourself untouched by whatever objects of the senses, and contemplating what with one pointed mind, the self, which is not an object of perception. And one-pointed means it is one-pointed in the self because there's no more attachment to sense objects. So the mind doesn't wander to sense objects. And thus do I firmly abide in that state in the self. And for the self-realized being, there's no attachment for sound and other sense objects because by self-realization there is bliss, fullness. And there's the realization that only the self exists. There are no sense objects. They are seen in their real nature, which is non-existent. So to what can there be attachment? Not even detachment we can talk about, because there's nothing there. But to understand, we talked about non-attachment. And the self not being an object of perception, my mind is free from distraction and one-pointed. So this, in the sense of the self-realized being, this my mind is one-pointed. This we cannot say. Well, if we juggle around with the meaning of words, maybe, but this one-pointedness. Therefore do I firmly abide. This one-pointedness maybe means the complete stillness of the mind. Maybe, but in the case of the enlightened one, this one-pointedness, because there's nothing else. So, okay, there's just the self. The mind is not focused. There's already self-realization. But thus do I firmly abide means I'm abiding in the self without any flickering, without any coming and going. I'm already established. An effort has to be made for concentration when there is distraction of mind owing to superimposition. Seeing this to be the rule, thus do I firmly abide. So an effort has to be made for concentration when there is distraction of the mind owing to superimposition, when there is the vision of duality, when there's identification with the body. The mind scatters around into sense objects, And an effort has to be made to abstract from those sense objects and focus on the self. So there's an effort there. Seeing this to be the rule, thus do I firmly abide. So seeing this, that there's an effort for concentration due owing to distraction. So I cut distraction altogether. And look into oneness alone. So this ignoring of duality, of any sense objects and perceptions, this is how I firmly abide. So these rules of concentration, they make sense and they are important for the ignorant one. And this, I'm using this word specifically because we are going to see this word a lot, and it's important to understand it, because when seekers read this, they say, oh, the ignorant one has to make concentration, where the wise one doesn't. Oh, so I'm a wise, I behave like the wise man. And it's not the case. The ignorant one is the one who is not self-realized. The wise one is the self-realized being. So he doesn't need the practice because he has reached the destination. So there's no more need for practice when he's established. But if he's not established, then the need for the practice comes. So, as a seeker of truth, an effort has to be made for concentration. When there is distraction of the mind due to superimposition, if there is no distraction, and I don't mean this in the sense of, oh, I sit for meditation, the mind doesn't distract. No, it's 24/7. There is no distraction with sense objects. If there's no attachments there, no hankering for anything, if there's just stillness, no need for effort, because if you're established in quietude, no need for the effort. The effort will disturb that quietude. But if you're not established in quietude, an effort has to be made because of superimposition. Because you're being forced to believe that you are the body and you are in the universe. A self-realized being making an effort for concentration is pointless and it's anti-natural. So what he was saying about I became intolerant to this. So a self-realized being becomes intolerant to effort also. His actions, doesn't matter if they are intense, even physical hard work. It's not an effort, it's natural. They are coming on it on their own. But for the self-realized being to make an effort for something, to focus on this and that and make an effort to acquire something or this and that, there's intolerance to that because that disturbs. It's kind of it's not natural. So the self-realized being abides in the self, is the self. No effort is needed because it is the natural state. Quite different from for the ignorant one, who is still conquering quietude, letting go of agitation, friction. So the one that hasn't realized the self has to make that effort for concentration, for abstraction, for detachment, until it becomes natural. Then he has to abide there. Having nothing to accept and nothing to reject, and having neither joy nor sorrow, thus, sir, do I now firmly abide. So he is describing the state of realization. Having nothing to accept and nothing to reject. I'm indifferent to all. I know it's not real. I am the self. I am fullness. I am bliss. And having neither joy nor sorrow. I know the nature of apparent existence. It doesn't exist. Whatever has to come, comes. Whatever has to go, goes. I'm not anxious for anything, nor do I have a problem with what is coming. Thus, sir, do I now firmly abide. This is my natural state. I am abiding in the self. I am the self. And as there's no identification with the body and mind, there's no identification with sense objects or circumstances or whatever appears to be happening. There's complete indifference for the world. And this is a state where the seeker of truth must get, but the difference in the knower of truth is not just indifference to that. There's the fullness part. There's the blissful part. And there's transcendence of duality. There's just oneness. Okay.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.